What if you've never really been yourself? What if the person you believe you are, the personality you defend, the choices you make, has been shaped and steered by forces you can't see? If you look at your life with brutal honesty, you might notice the patterns, relationships that repeat no matter how you promise to change, opportunities you turn away from without knowing why, an inner voice whispering, "You're not enough." These aren't quirks. They're signs of an invisible prison, built not of steel, but of hidden psychological forces. This prison has no visible bars. Most think they're free because they can choose their job, their partner, their city. But what if the very mind making those choices has been shaped by something older, deeper, and less conscious than you imagine? You could spend your whole life rearranging the furniture in your cell, never realizing the door is locked. Carl Gustav. Jung understood this like few others. He was a cartographer of the human soul, mapping the unseen landscapes of the psyche, light and shadow, instinct and memory, individuality and universality. He dared to explore the parts of ourselves we avoid, the ones that frighten us, confuse us, or don't fit the image we show the world. Jung believed the greatest danger isn't the economy, politics, or bad luck, it's what lies within us, unexamined. The forces we refuse to face, the truths we deny. He spoke of the shadow, the archetypes, the collective unconscious, and individuation, the journey to wholeness. Ignoring these, he warned, is like walking blindfolded into a storm. Think about the last time you reacted in a way that surprised you. Maybe you snapped at someone you love over something trivial. Maybe you sabotaged a chance you've been waiting for. Maybe you've thought, "That's not me." But what if it was, just not the part you know? The unconscious holds everything you've repressed, inherited, and absorbed. It shapes your fears, desires, and identity. It whispers instructions you mistake for your own thoughts. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." The patterns you keep repeating aren't coincidences, they're consequences of what you've yet to face. At first, the prison feels safe, familiar routines, predictable roles. But over time, restlessness grows. Achievements don't satisfy. Relationships feel empty. Goals lose meaning. That's the signal. You're living within limits you never chose. Jung didn't just name the prison, he offered keys. Freedom isn't doing whatever you want. It's knowing what shapes what you want. But the mind resists seeing the full truth. The shadow hides in plain sight. Archetypes play their roles without revealing themselves. The deeper psyche speaks in symbols, not logic. Escaping the prison requires a different kind of seeing. This work is uncomfortable. Looking inward means facing both pain and potential. Both can be terrifying. Pain demands healing. Potential demands responsibility. Once you see the bars, you can't pretend they're not there. Many avoid this because freedom always comes with a cost. Yet beyond the fear lies a life not dependent on circumstances. Freedom that doesn't mean avoiding storms, but walking through them without losing yourself. Jung saw this transformation as essential. Without it, we remain half-formed, living stories we didn't write, believing the script is fixed. Ahead, we'll explore Jung's map, the shadow hiding in your blind spots, the archetype shaping your story, and the process of individuation. The path to becoming whole. For now, know this. If you've felt the quiet ache that there's more to you than you've lived so far, you're already hearing the first crack in the prison wall. Once you've heard it, you can never unhear it. There's a part of you you'd rather not see, a part buried so deeply you've convinced yourself it doesn't exist. Yet it moves through your life like a shadow, silent, persistent, shaping choices you can't explain. Jung called it the Shadow, the collection of everything you've rejected in yourself. Shame, anger, envy, pride, fears. It's made of impulses you've hidden, thoughts you've pushed away, emotions you've labeled unacceptable. Whether you admit it or not, it walks beside you every day. The shadow isn't someone else's ghost, it's you. It began when you edited yourself to be loved, accepted, safe. Maybe you learned not to cry, locking away vulnerability. Maybe you were punished for speaking your mind, so you replaced honesty with politeness. Over time, you hid the parts of yourself that others found inconvenient. But what you repress doesn't disappear. It grows stronger in the dark. Have you snapped over something small and thought, I don't know what came over me? Felt envy and disguised it as disinterest? Avoided an opportunity, not because you didn't want it, but because you believed you'd fail? That's your shadow. It doesn't shout, it whispers, nudges, quietly reshapes your path. It wears disguises. Judgment, where you attack flaws in others you can't face in yourself. Perfectionism, keeping you busy to avoid deeper work. Self-sabotage, where you forget or procrastinate to avoid confronting success. The more you deny your shadow, the more control it gains. Like a wild animal in a cage, it grows restless, unpredictable, finding ways to slip out in fights you can't stop having, in last-minute ruined opportunities, in patterns you swear you'll never repeat but do. Here's the paradox: the shadow is not purely destructive. It's also the keeper of your unlived potential. The anger you suppress could become courage to set boundaries. The envy you feel could become the drive to grow. The vulnerability you hide could open the door to deeper connection. The traits you fear may be the ones that set you free, if you dare to face them. Jung said, the part of you that can destroy your life is the same part that can save it. Ignoring the shadow keeps you a prisoner. Facing it lets you reclaim what you've abandoned. To see it, notice when you feel disproportionate emotion, irritation at a comment, discomfort at someone else's success, an irrational fear that stops you. Ask, what is this reaction protecting me from seeing? Projection is the shadow's favorite trick. You see in others what you can't admit in yourself. You accuse someone of arrogance while fearing your own. Call someone lazy while avoiding your own responsibilities. The more you believe you're a good person, the more dangerous your shadow becomes, because you stop questioning your motives. It hides in your certainty, in the flaws you see only in others. This isn't cause for shame. It's an invitation to curiosity. Start noticing where your reactions are strongest, where criticism is sharpest, where fear is loudest. These are the shadow's footprints. The shadow can't be destroyed, but it can be integrated. When you stop running and start listening, the energy once spent suppressing yourself becomes available for living. Traits you feared become tools. Conflicts that drained you become sources of clarity. It's not quick or painless. It demands humility, patience, and the courage to be uncomfortable. But remember, the shadow isn't proof you're broken. It's proof you're human. Everyone has one. The difference between those trapped in patterns and those who find freedom is simple: the willingness to look in the mirror and not turn away. Beneath your personal story, childhood memories, victories, wounds, dreams, there runs another story, older than you, older than your family, older than any culture you've known. Jung called it the collective unconscious, a vast layer of the mind shared by every human who has ever lived. It's the deep ocean beneath the island of your individual experience, where the currents of all human history still move. This is not a metaphor, but the blueprint of the psyche, holding patterns, symbols, and forces that have shaped human behavior. For millennia, you may believe your thoughts and fears are uniquely yours, yet many are expressions of structures older than you. That's why certain stories and characters appear again and again across civilizations that never met. The hero who leaves home, faces trials, and returns transformed. The wise old guide who appears at the critical moment, from Merlin to Gandalf to a teacher who changed your life. These figures emerge spontaneously because they're embedded in the architecture of the mind. Jung called them archetypes, universal patterns of behavior, emotion, and thought. They're not learned. They're inherited, living in the collective. Unconscious, waiting for the right conditions to step onto the stage. Freud saw the unconscious as personal, a storehouse of repressed memories and desires, mainly sexual. Jung agreed it existed but went deeper, past the personal to the shared and timeless. This set him apart from his teacher and placed him in direct contact with humanity's oldest stories. Consider the hero called to overcome obstacles and face danger for something greater. The wise one, offering guidance when you're ready to learn. The anima and animus, the inner feminine in men and inner masculine in women, calling for integration of neglected qualities. And the shadow, carrying the parts of yourself you deny. Archetypes don't just shape imagination, they can seize your behavior. Ever found yourself in a role you didn't choose? Sacrificing too much in the name of helping others? You may be possessed by the hero's extreme form, always seeking approval. The wounded child may be active, stuck in repeating relationship dynamics. You might be reliving an archetypal script rather than reacting to individuals. Life can feel like déjà vu, not because you've lived the moment before, but because you've lived the pattern. The collective unconscious is the stage. You can change costumes and settings, but if the same archetype directs, the story feels familiar. Dreams are one of the clearest windows into this realm. Journeys, battles, strange guides, temptations. These images may seem random until you recognize them as archetypal language. Jung saw such imagery as signs that something profound is moving within you. It's also why certain myths, art, or religious symbols feel powerful even from cultures you've never known. A serpent, a flood, a mountain, a rebirth, these aren't foreign. They're part of your own inner structure. But here's the mystery. Though we all carry these archetypes, not all are active at once, which are shaping your life, which quietly influences your choices and identity. If you don't know, you may be living a story you didn't write, and like any story, it can lead to triumph or tragedy depending on your awareness. Jung's insight was a call to reclaim individuality, not erase it. If you remain unaware of these patterns, you'll be moved like a puppet. But once you recognize them, you can choose when to let the hero lead, when to set down the sword, when to listen to the wise one, when to face the shadow without being ruled by it. The collective unconscious is both a gift and a challenge. It connects you to humanity's wisdom and struggle, but also to its fears and unfinished battles. Your task is not to erase these influences, but to see them, then decide whether to keep dancing to their rhythm or change the steps. Next, we'll explore how this awareness can lead to something even more radical: individuation, the process of integrating all parts, personal and collective, conscious and unconscious, into a life that's truly your own. Until you see the script you've been following, you cannot begin to rewrite it. There's a part of you you'd rather not see, a part buried so deeply you've convinced yourself it doesn't exist. Yet it moves through your life like a shadow, silent, persistent, shaping choices you can't explain. Jung called it the shadow, the collection of everything you've rejected in yourself: shame, anger, envy, pride, fears. It's made of impulses you've hidden, thoughts you've pushed away, emotions you've labeled unacceptable. Whether you admit it or not, it walks beside you every day. The shadow isn't someone else's ghost, it's you. It began when you edited yourself to be loved, accepted, safe. Maybe you learned not to cry, locking away vulnerability. Maybe you were punished for speaking your mind, so you replaced honesty with politeness. Over time, you hid the parts of yourself that others found inconvenient. But what you repress doesn't disappear. It grows stronger in the dark. Have you snapped over something small and thought, I don't know what came over me? Felt envy and disguised it as disinterest? Avoided an opportunity, not because you didn't want it, but because you believed you'd fail? That's your shadow. It doesn't shout, it whispers, nudges, quietly reshapes your path. It wears disguises. Judgment, where you attack flaws in others you can't face in yourself. Perfectionism, keeping you busy to avoid deeper work. Self-sabotage, where you forget or procrastinate to avoid confronting success. The more you deny your shadow, the more control it gains. Like a wild animal in a cage, it grows restless, unpredictable, finding ways to slip out in fights you can't stop having, in last-minute ruined opportunities, in patterns you swear you'll never repeat but do. Here's the paradox: the shadow is not purely destructive. It's also the keeper of your unlived potential. The anger you suppress could become courage to set boundaries. The envy you feel could become the drive to grow. The vulnerability you hide could open the door to deeper connection. The traits you fear may be the ones that set you free, if you dare to face them. Jung said, the part of you that can destroy your life is the same part that can save it. Ignoring the shadow keeps you a prisoner. Facing it lets you reclaim what you've abandoned. To see it, notice when you feel disproportionate emotion, irritation at a comment, discomfort at someone else's success, an irrational fear that stops you. Ask, what is this reaction protecting me from seeing? Projection is the shadow's favorite trick. You see in others what you can't admit in yourself. You accuse someone of arrogance while fearing your own. Call someone lazy while avoiding your own responsibilities. The more you believe you're a good person, the more dangerous your shadow becomes, because you stop questioning your motives. It hides in your certainty, in the flaws you see only in others. This isn't cause for shame. It's an invitation to curiosity. Start noticing where your reactions are strongest, where criticism is sharpest, where fear is loudest. These are the shadow's footprints. The shadow can't be destroyed, but it can be integrated. When you stop running and start listening, the energy once spent suppressing yourself becomes available for living. Traits you feared become tools. Conflicts that drained you become sources of clarity. It's not quick or painless. It demands humility, patience, and the courage to be uncomfortable. But remember, the shadow isn't proof you're broken. It's proof you're human. Everyone has one. The difference between those trapped in patterns and those who find freedom is simple: the willingness to look in the mirror and not turn away. Every night, when the noise of the day fades, something in you begins to speak. It doesn't use ordinary words but symbols, images, and strange stories. To most, dreams seem random, but to Jung, they were the voice of the psyche, messages from the unconscious, guidance in a language older than speech. Dreams, Jung believed, are part of the mind's self-regulating system. When your waking life drifts from your inner truth, the unconscious sends dreams to restore balance, sometimes gently, other times with images so vivid you can't ignore them. The more disconnected you are, the louder the dream becomes. Symbols in dreams are rarely literal, they are archetypal. A house may represent your inner self, a snake transformation, a loss of control. Being chased, the parts of yourself you avoid. teeth crumbling, a fear of losing power. These images bypass logic, revealing cracks you deny in daylight. Buried desires, minimized fears, avoided truths. Archetypes walk easily in dreamscapes, the wise guide offering timely counsel, the hero mirroring your struggles, the shadow as a dark figure or threatening animal. These are not random encounters. They are invitations to awareness that recurring dreams are like letters returned unopened. The forest you keep wandering may call you to face the unknown. The locked door could be a truth you resist. A repeated argument might point to a long-avoided conflict. Recurrence means the message remains unanswered. Jung advised recording dreams immediately upon waking before details fade. Even if meaning is unclear, patterns will emerge over time. What first seems chaotic reveals itself as guidance. You don't need training or special tools to begin, only the willingness to listen. Tonight your psyche will speak again. Will you dismiss it as nonsense, or recognize it as your soul's patient call? Dreams aren't just reflections of the past, they're blueprints for transformation. They reveal wounds, signal readiness for growth, connect you to archetypes, and expose the shadow you hide. Ignore them, and you remain in old patterns, walking the same circles. Listen, and you may find the door in the dark, slowly opening to parts of yourself you never knew. As you step through, you'll understand what Jung knew. Your soul has always been speaking. The only question is, are you ready to answer? We live in a world more connected than any in history, yet people have never felt more alone. Information is everywhere, streaming into our minds every second. But clarity is harder to find than ever. We scroll past thousands of lives each day. Smiling faces, perfect vacations, curated success, and without realizing it, we start comparing ourselves to illusions. We begin to measure our worth by the applause of strangers and the approval of algorithms. The result is a quiet crisis, anxiety that won't fade, depression that returns no matter how much we achieve, and a deep, gnawing sense that something essential is missing. Jung saw this coming long before smartphones, before social media, before our lives became so public, yet so hidden. He warned that the more we identify with the persona, the social mask we create to be accepted, the more disconnected we become from the self. The persona is necessary. It's how we navigate the demands of society. But when it becomes the whole of who we think we are, the soul is left out in the cold. And when the soul is ignored, it doesn't go silent. It starts to protest in the only ways it can, through restlessness, through emptiness, through symptoms we call stress, burnout, or existential crisis. Look closely at the culture we live in. Productivity is treated as a virtue above all else. Appearance is valued more than depth. Every day we're told to be our best selves, but what that really means is, be the version of yourself that photographs well, that earns approval, that never shows weakness. We learn to edit not only our photos, but our personalities, trimming away the parts that don't fit the story we want others to believe. And all the while, the shadow grows. The more we hide our fear, our envy, our loneliness, the more those forces take root beneath the surface, shaping our lives without our consent. Social media has turned this into a constant performance. We don't just wear the mask at work or in certain social settings, we wear it all the time. We polish our persona not for a few people in the room, but for hundreds or thousands of unseen observers. Every post becomes a subtle negotiation between truth and image. And with each performance, the distance between the mask and the self widens. That distance is where the soul begins to starve. Jung would not be surprised by the rise in anxiety, depression, and a sense of meaninglessness. He predicted that modern man, cut off from the deeper layers of his psyche, would feel rootless and lost. He wrote about the dangers of ignoring the unconscious, warning that a culture obsessed with material progress and surface appearances would collapse inward. We see it now: rising mental health crises, relationships that feel disposable, entire generations questioning their purpose before their lives have truly begun. This is why Jung's work is not an artifact of the past. It's a map for the present. His ideas about the shadow, the collective unconscious, and individuation are not just philosophical, they are survival tools for the modern mind. Because while the pressures of our time are unique, the human psyche is not. We still carry the same deep structures, the same need for meaning, the same call toward wholeness that humans have carried for millennia. The urgency is real. You can't scroll your way to self-knowledge. You can't fill the emptiness with more likes, more followers, more achievements. The persona might win applause, but it will never feed the soul. And the longer you live disconnected from your deeper self, the more life feels like an endless loop, busy but hollow, surrounded yet isolated. But here is the hope: the same tools Jung offered decades ago can cut through the noise. Turning inward toward your shadow, your dreams, your archetypes is not an escape from reality, it's a return to it. It's learning to live from the inside out instead of the outside in. It's remembering that you are not just a collection of roles and reactions, but a whole being with depths the surface can't contain. Yes, the world will keep demanding your attention, your performance, your compliance. But you have the choice to step back, to listen for the voice beneath the noise, to reclaim the parts of yourself you've hidden to survive. This is not about abandoning the outer world. It's about anchoring yourself so deeply in your inner world that the outer one can't pull you apart. In Jung's time, the threat was the growing dominance of the rational mind over the symbolic, the measurable over the meaningful. In ours, that imbalance has reached a fever pitch. But the path back is the same. Integrate what you've exiled, listen to what you've silenced, and dare to live without the mask being the whole of you. Because while the pressures of modern life are relentless, so is the call of the self. And if you can hear that call even faintly, it means you haven't lost it. You still have the chance to answer. And in answering, you may find that the very world that felt like a battlefield becomes the ground on which you finally stand whole. Transformation doesn't happen all at once. You don't wake up one morning fully integrated, free from old patterns, immune to the pull of the shadow. Jung knew this. He understood that the journey toward wholeness is long, often messy, and rarely linear. But he also knew something else, that the first step is the most important. Because it's the moment you stop pretending you don't know. That first step is radical honesty with yourself. Not the polished version of truth you share with others, but the raw, unfiltered truth you've been avoiding. The feelings you've brushed aside, the patterns you've excused, the dreams you've dismissed as unimportant. It's sitting down, even for just a few minutes, and writing without censoring. What am I hiding from? What am I afraid to admit? What part of me have I locked away because I thought it was unworthy? You don't have to confront your deepest shadow on day one. Start small. Notice when you feel envy, irritation, or fear, and instead of pushing it away, ask what it's trying to show you. When a dream lingers in your mind, write it down before it fades. Pay attention to recurring images, emotions, or situations. These are breadcrumbs leading you back to the parts of yourself you've lost. This first step matters, because awareness changes everything. Once you see a pattern, you can't unsee it. Once you hear the voice of your unconscious, you can't pretend it's silent. You might not act on it right away, but the recognition itself begins to shift the balance of power. You move from being unconsciously controlled to consciously engaged. That's the beginning of freedom. Freedom, in Jung's sense, isn't about escaping life's challenges. It's about meeting them as your whole self. It's about knowing your shadow well enough that it can't sabotage you in the dark. It's about listening to your dreams, your symbols, your instincts, and trusting them as much as you trust reason. It's about integration, not perfection. So start today. One page in a journal, one truth you've been avoiding, one dream you've been ignoring. That's enough. And if this message has stirred something in you, if you feel a mix of discomfort and recognition, it means the journey has already begun. I want to hear from you. Which part of yourself do you know you've been avoiding? What shadow are you ready, even in a small way, to turn toward? Share it in the comments. Not for me, but for you. Because putting it into words is the first act of bringing light to it. In future videos, we'll go deeper into the specific archetypes that shape your life without you realizing it. How to recognize them, work with them, and stop being a character in a story you didn't choose. For now, take that first step. Because once you do, you'll never again be able to pretend you don't know the way forward. And that is the beginning of your freedom.